This meeting of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Garcia. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Here.
Director Jackson.
Present.
Director Leonard.
Present.
Director O'Halloran.
Here.
Director Seamson.
Present.
Director Zombor.
Present.
Director Garcia.
Present.
And President Herndon.
Present.
That's 8 members present.
Will the Secretary please read the call of the meeting?
To the members of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, at the request of President Marva Herndon, the following meeting is scheduled to take place in the auditorium of the Central Services Building, 5225 West Valete Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for consideration of the item of business in the notice. The meeting is scheduled for 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, May 14th, 2024, and is a statutory public hearing. The item on the agenda is public hearing on the 2024-25 Superintendent's Proposed Budget. The meeting is being presented pursuant to the provisions of Section 119.16, Parent 8, Parent A, Wisconsin statutes, which requires the board to hold a public hearing on the proposed school budget. The purpose of this meeting is strictly for giving the public hearing. No action will be taken at this meeting. The board may take action on the proposed FY 2025 budget at its regular meeting tentatively scheduled on May 30th, 2024.
I will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so, and ask that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted from the Central Services Building in order to allow as much public access and participation as possible. This meeting is also being broadcast on WYMS Radio, 88.9 FM, via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding the interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799 e introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. We acknowledge that Milwaukee lies on traditional Menominee, Potawatomi, and Ho-Chunk homeland along the southwest shores of Lake Michigan, part of North America's largest system of freshwater lakes. On this site, the Milwaukee, Menominee, and Kinnickinnick rivers meet, and the people of Wisconsin's Menominee, Ojibwa, Ho-Chunk, Oneida, and Mohegan sovereign nations remain present to this day. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictate that all comments should be directed to the chair. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, board members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, he or she will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, No one other than the members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page of the MPS website. One additional item is each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes with an additional 30 seconds to wrap up. Thank you. As indicated in the call of the meeting, we are here to receive public testimony on the proposed fiscal year 2025 school operations, construction, and extension fund budgets. Tonight's meeting is for public hearing only, and the board will not take any action on the proposed budget tonight. The chair asks that any member of the public wishing to speak, please complete a speaker slip and bring it to our secretary, Ms. Kowalo. Virtual speakers are asked to remain on the platform until you're called upon to speak. After speaking, virtual speakers may follow the remainder of the meeting at any of the broadcast options mentioned previously. Written testimony will also be accepted and will be included as a part of the official record of this meeting. Written testimony may be mailed to the board via the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. We will now open the floor to members of the public in attendance tonight. When you're called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. In order to hear from as many people as possible, the chair asks that individuals limit their remarks to 2 minutes with an additional 15 seconds, which is corrected to 30 seconds, for wrap-up. There's a timer on the lectern. Your time will begin when the green light comes on. The yellow light will indicate that you have 30 seconds to wrap up. The red light will indicate that your time is up. For the sake of efficiency, the chair will call 3 speakers at a time. When your name is called, please come up and wait in the queue for your turn to speak. Now let's begin, Madam Secretary. Do we have any speakers on the virtual platform?
Madam President, we have one speaker on the virtual platform. That is Angela Harris.
Thank you.
If you could please state your name, spell your last name, and give your testimony. Angela Harris. Madam President, perhaps we could call on Ms. Harris after the in-person speakers?
Okay, we'll get started with those. The first will be Gabrielle Brown.
Okay, good afternoon, guys. My name is Gabrielle Brown, last name B-R-O-W-N. I go to Godemeyer High School. I am in 11th grade, and I'm currently 16. Today, I would like to talk about the budget cut. With this, it will affect schools as well as the students. With this, it will be taking away times for teachers, finding subs, and then also taking away the food distributors will all cause mayhem. These factors are what makes MPS what it is now. The teachers, that's how the future is going to be what it is. Taking away teachers is limiting education and giving people like less time, if that makes sense. Because now you gotta work on, how do I put this? you're gonna have less staff, making it more harder for the staff that is there to give time to other students. It's gonna be hard to get help when the teacher is helping 15 other kids on the same thing because they don't have no staff. Right now with my school, we had a big test or like a big exam, but a lot of teachers wasn't able to be there, or a lot of teachers wasn't putting it on the strength that they didn't have no staff. So they had to call outside teachers, outside district workers in order to conduct the exam. And then with finding subs, taking away teacher timing, with this, it takes away a lot of their lunch times, a lot of their times that they do to just work on, what is it called? I forgot. Just their prep time in general. And with that, subbing for other teachers, it just affects the whole learning process. But that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
The next speaker is David Oppenheimer.
Board, Eppelsheimer, Eppelsheimer. And I'm providing a testimony tonight to speak in favor of the MPS administration agreeing to bring equitable increases to the salary schedules for safety professionals and CHAs during the ongoing meet and confer process. Speaking as a teacher, I have been able to stay on the job and, teach in the city I grew up in because of the increases that we've been able to get. And I'd like that to happen for our safety professionals and CHAs as well. It's meant the world of difference for me and my family, and I like that, to happen for them as well because they deserve it and they do incredible work. So thank you.
Thank you. The next one is Quentin Calban.
Hey everybody, Quentin Claybon, K-L-A-B-O-N. I had a whole thing written, but I will skip that. Really simple, really short, one short thing. So this will culminate with one question. So right now, before the referendum, Milwaukee Public Schools, of the 200 biggest districts in America, was already ranked 26th in spending per student, and kind of the opposite of what we hear sometimes of those 200 biggest districts. We were the 21st best funded by our state and federal governments. We got the vast majority of our funding from the state and local governments. And it was actually, you can say this, it was almost the city of Milwaukee that was undertaxed, and now that's changed with the referendum. So we were treated much better by our state and federal government than Cleveland, Chicago, Philadelphia, Atlanta, cities like that. So within that context, I think it was Director Leonard who last meeting brought up, are we going to face kind of, like maybe 6 or 7 digit deficits every year coming up, and just how do we adjust for that? I just wanted to ask basically one question. So some positions were removed, whether they would either not being filled or cut from the budget. I think it was about 290 positions. But after adjusting for a 4% inflation raise, I think there was like $64 million on top of that in salaries and benefits. And so I was just curious, where that was coming from. That's a genuine, not hostile question, but basically worrying if we're already cutting staff or not filling positions, and the salaries and benefits are still rising even above inflation. Just wondering where those increases are coming from. So thanks for all your hard work on the budget, and hopefully it's one that's sustainable and great for all the kids in their city. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Sierra Brown. Following Sierra will be Ariane Gilliam Francis. Did I get 2?
President Herndon, members of the board, Sierra Brown, B-R-O-W-N. I'm here today because in a previous testimony I gave, one of the board members warned that we were getting our information, like, there was misinformation going around, and this is months ago now. And I'm just wanting to emphasize that if you don't want your constituents to speak in generalizations, then the information in the budget needs to be more transparent and accessible in different data formats. And something that I feel is missing from the budget that I noticed today is I'd like the ESSER funding broken down by school from previous years, so we know which schools are taking the biggest cuts from the sunsetting of this funding. And if it is indeed the schools with greatest need for support are the same schools that are now losing that funding. The district needs to be transparent with that, about that, and remedy that. And then additionally, the cuts to central services. This doesn't detail which schools are most impacted by these cuts. And many teachers, as well as myself, believe that schools should have the decision-making power over all of their funding, as opposed to the current budget structure where central office makes cuts that impact schools. Now, this is inequitable when you have smaller budgets that are impacted much more significantly by the cuts made to central office. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have Ariana Gilliam Francis?
Hello, my name is Ariana, and I am a Golda Meir student. I'm a senior in high school, and I will be graduating this year. So as you know, I have been in the MPS schooling system ever since K4, so I have had my fair amount of experience with this. In a perfect world, school systems everywhere will be entirely funded and would be able to provide everything for their students adequately. Unfortunately, as made quite obvious, this world is not perfect, and over 90% of Wisconsin public school districts are struggling to hire and keep staff due to the really high turnout rate. Schools nationwide are struggling with understaffment, and they're failing to find instructors to nurture students. And to my understanding, this proposal would cut nearly 150 teachers from jobs, or at least shift them over to different positions. And I question if a system that can barely pay for and compensate the teachers can actually supplement more budget cuts. I question if the answer to financial problems will become less about how many people you cut and more about investigations into how this funding is actually being spent. I'd like to emphasize that teachers are not just paid employees, but also valued creators, advisors, friends, nurturers, who are raising the scientists, artists, and athletes of tomorrow. Without teachers, there's no school. With no school, you have no education. And with no education, you have no future. And that's all for today.
Thank you. Daryl Moon, please. Daryl Moon.
I am Daryl Moore. I am a senior at Golda Meir High School. I've spent my entire 4 years of high school at
Could you spell your last name, please?
Moore.
Okay, because on here it's a Moon, so let me correct it.
But yeah, I've spent my entire 4 years of high school at MPS, and I spent my first 3 years at Rufus King, and then I transferred to Golda Meir High School, and I noticed there was like a considerable drop in lunch quality. And from what I understand, that there's 2 schools on pre-packs. There's another school, I'm not sure which one it is, but the other school is Golda Meir. And since we're talking about budget, maybe I think it would be a good idea to consider taking those schools off of pre-packed lunch, because every other MPS school in the district has fresh lunch, and I don't feel like just 2 other schools should be excluded from that.
Thank you. Next, we have Vince Tony.
Vince Tony. Tony's the last name, Toney. I'm concerned, the young lady mentioned the ESSER funds and how that's going to affect the schools. I guess it's going to be ending in September of this year. My experience with the ESSER fund, I think, if I'm correct, I spent time at Keefe Avenue Street School as a volunteer. They let me in one day, and during that day, I was allowed in one class. It was pretty calm. I was allowed in another class. It was chaotic and confused. Since then, I think there was a young lady there said she was a para, and she was 21 years old, and she says that she's on the sabbatical to help out. She wasn't doing much of anything besides sitting. There was 5 Caucasian females that were there. They were there to take kids out of the classrooms, to take them to the library, to tutor them or whatever. The young lady, that class that I was sitting in, they came to her class and she said that she really didn't want them because she was in the middle of a lesson. The Caucasian lady said, well, these kids have to come with us. And teacher says, well, bring someone that says that. She brought the principal, who was an interim principal. He said, yes, these kids have to be removed from this class and go to the library to be taught by these teachers, these volunteers. I came back to the school. I was not allowed back into school. I volunteered. I came down to this office 4 or 5 times, volunteered for Golda Meir, North Division, and Keefe Avenue Street School. North Division won't allow me back in there to volunteer, neither does Keefe Avenue Street School. It seems like this ESSER fund has funded a lot of positions at the schools that's going to be disappearing. I'm not sure how they're going to be replaced. When I was at North Division, in the meeting, the principal says that he was preparing his budget for 24-25 because he was going to be losing $200 million in funding, and this was before the referendum. So evidently he had some idea what was going to be going on. Is that part of the ESSER funding that we lost? We're losing over $200 million from the ESSER funds that's being replaced by what you guys call the referendum for $250 million? Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary.
Madam President, I was advised that Ms. Harris has joined the virtual platform. If we could call on Angela Harris.
Thank you. Angela Harris, please.
Can y'all hear me? Angela Harris, Harris, chairwoman of the Black Educators Collective. So last week I asked y'all to make it make sense, to make the budget make sense. Y'all can't, so I'm going to use some familiar language. Chop from the top. Now, Superintendent Posley might not be familiar with that phrasing, at least not during his tenure. It's been more like chop from facilities, chop from staffing, chop from school budget. Yikes. How much of the $52 million allocated for central office are necessary positions that will improve academic outcomes or behavior disparities of our students? I, as a teacher, have been asked too often to do more with less. When do the folks at the top of the organizational chart feel that same pressure? Has district administration really made the tough decisions necessary to ensure cuts stay as far away from our classrooms as possible? I know it's a lot easier to cut a teacher you don't know than to demote one of your friends. Special education teachers are stretched thin. Classroom teachers are stretched thin. School social workers, psychologists, nurses, educational assistants, school safety, and kitchen staff are all stretched thin. You know who doesn't seem to be stretched thin, though? Central office staff and administration. What we are witnessing is the slow demise of our district, a death by 1,000 cuts. And who will suffer the most? Not the folks at the top that make 6 figures, but our students and staff on the ground, and ultimately our community. Y'all need to make this budget make sense.
Okay. With that, we have a lot of extra time. If administration would like to speak on any of these items that were presented to us, you're welcome to do so. If not, we will. Okay, with that, the board having taken the testimony, then this public hearing is concluded. and thank you all for attending. The board will continue its work on the proposed fiscal year 25 budget at the meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Budget on Tuesday, May 16th, 2024, and Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. Both meetings are scheduled to begin at 5:30 here in the Central Services Auditorium. Public comments will be accepted at both meetings. Also, the board is scheduled to possibly take final action on the proposed fiscal year budget at the regular meeting of the board on May 30th, 2024. This meeting is scheduled to begin at 5:30 here in the Central Services Auditorium. Although this will be a public meeting, as is customary at regular meetings of the board, no public hearing will be given. Before we adjourn this meeting, the chair would like to thank all of you who either addressed the board tonight or provided us with written comments. If any of our listening audience would like to submit comments, please send them to the Office of Board Governance, Central Services Building, Room 273, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201, 2181. Email governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. You may fax at 414-475-8071. Again, thank you all for your participation in this meeting and in the entire budget process to date. There will be no further business before the board. This meeting is adjourned.